It's that time again, and it's actually the first Australian internet dating conference that we've ever done.
iDate Down Under.
iDate Down Under, no less. Kangaroo free, but full of some top-tier dating companies, and not very many providers this time, actually. It was
Very few vendors. As a matter of fact, that was the only compliment I got from every single dating operator that was here. They said, hey, there's not one payment processor here, which actually really surprised me. And no offense to my vendors that are payment processors, but yeah, they really enjoyed the fact that you weren't here.
Good focus time with a new market for us.
Yeah, definitely a very new market, a very interesting market. iDate's been around for 9 years. This is the first time we've done one in Australia. We've been doing conferences in the Far East for a while. We did it in Shanghai and Beijing and even in Tokyo. There's been requests, and we've had people coming from Australia for a few years, and we figured, okay, we'll come down here. It was a fairly small event, but a very high caliber, very high quality event for sure, that I saw.
Yeah, and the people who were attending were mainly from Australia, so we didn't have too much of a Asian contingent.
But it was mostly Australian. The major players in Australia were here.
Yeah.
I mean, Oasis Interactive and RedHotPie. So the keynote was Isabelle Arnaud from the
ACCC.
the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission.
So really one of the distinctions with this market is that it is pretty well observed by the government. And the government here doesn't tend to have too many things to sidetrack it. It's actually looking for things to regulate, and so it turned its attention to the dating industry. The ACCC, they've been monitoring the scammer activity, and they had 21 occurrences reports last year. The average scam was $21,000, and 5% of those scams were scams of over $100,000. So they've turned their attention towards the industry and helped institute best practices here.
What was really good about it was that the industry was willing to welcome the ACCC with open arms and saying, hey, we want to help, we want to work with you as well.
And that's a good framework for us to consider in other jurisdictions around the country, around the world. So, along with the German standards. So I think we'll be looking over the German standards and looking over what's been done here, and that might be an inspiration for companies in other parts of the world.
Well, it caught also the attention of the Federal Trade Commission in the United States as well, so they started paying attention to this as well. So it's starting to pick up and take off. There's two elements of scams that take place. One is a false consumer that's based in another country is trying to conduct some sort of financial fraud against another dating consumer. And then the other, this is more insidious, this is where the actual dating operator is attempting to basically increase their customer attention, and by doing so they're creating fake profiles and trying to communicate with those users to make them feel there's value in it. That's fraud, without a doubt. The good guys in the business are dead set against this, and this is not something good for the industry overall.
And Isabelle told us that we should be communicating very clearly and simply with users about the possibility of scamming activity. The feedback from the operators, she told us, was that that didn't have a negative impact on business. It actually was not a negative.
Then you had a session, you gave an overview of the Asia-Pac market. What were your highlights?
Well, I'll be putting some of the highlights on OPW, but basically Australia is a fast-growing market. Australia, there's about 1.1 million internet daters, which is actually down considerably, 22% over last year. So why could it be down? Well, because of mobile. A lot of people are shifting over to mobile. And in fact, across Asia, 18% of all internet traffic is on mobile at this stage, which compared to North America, only 8% in North America, so it's a very mobile-oriented market, incidentally. Now, the top players here are Oasis and RSVP and Plenty of Fish, and RedHotPie, interestingly, Match didn't show up in the top 10. They've been in this market, they're not in the top 10 here.
Well, they slid off.
Apparently so, yeah. I mean, they came in, they spent a good amount of money, but I guess it's not on their radar. So
English-speaking market, too.
But new entrants are Zoosk and B2 and Badu.
And a lot of new players we're seeing anyway, because obviously the market's growing.
Yeah.
New players entering the market almost daily at this stage.
Yeah, a lot more niche players as well.
Okay.
In China, there's 180 million bachelors, and there's actually 122 boys born for every 100 girls now, so there's quite a mismatch, and that could spell for quite an opportunity. Actually, they say the market is going to be worth $315 million by 2015 for internet dating in China. Right now it's 75 million, and G1 is the top dating site there. Followed by now Bai here in number 2 place, and Zhenai in number 3. Of course, we know Jason Tian and Dr. Song Li from a few years back in China and in Shanghai and Beijing conferences there.
I
So
knew
we're going to eventually
I
go
knew
into
when I
China.
did that conference that those guys there were going to be billionaires and we'd never see them again. I knew that was
They're
gonna happen.
still running the companies, and
They'll-
they're very consistent. So we're going to go to China
We
next
have to
year.
do another one in China, I guess.
Japan, the top dating site there now is 194964, and they're actually doing a lot of advertising, a lot of promotion, including driving trucks around. They've actually got these billboards on the side of trucks, and they're paying them 35 grand a week to go drive around. They see 48,000 people a day, apparently, to see these trucks.
And then we had Max McGuire from RedHotPie. He gave a presentation. He was basically a response to Brian Bowman's keynote in Los Angeles. He didn't like Brian's point of view on certain things and wanted to give his opinions on them. It would have been nice if Brian was in the room, so would have had a nice, healthy debate. But we understand Brian's busy running his company and couldn't make it for this one. He had his points, which dealt mostly with the economics and where he saw social discovery compared to traditional online dating. He did not personally view that social discovery was a market disruptor to online dating. Peter Wallace from Bluegum Ventures also spoke at the event. He covered venture cap in the industry. And what was interesting was he was covering venture cap in the Australian marketplace. He wanted to show how venture caps viewed the dating market. And what's interesting is that that's what we're seeing in the last year and a half, that there's more venture cap companies interested in dating. There's also a lot of dating companies that feel that they can't get off the ground without venture cap.
But part of the problem with the Australian market is it doesn't offer that much opportunity for crazy multiples and returns, and that's what VCs are looking for. Angels are more down to earth, but VCs are looking for at least 10, 50. They're looking for the home run, and they're unlikely to get that kind of multiple and home run. Especially, it's local Australian VC companies maybe, but certainly companies that are in America are not going to invest as VCs in Australian companies. Now, the reverse about it is its potential. There is potential for companies that have grown here and shown success to get VC funding to go to different markets.
The interesting part was that when it came to business model, all of them want a Facebook.
Yeah.
And the traditional dating model for them, with the 3 or 4 months average retention, that they're not interested in.
There's no unknown quantity, is it?
But no. They'd rather bet on a company that has a free or freemium model, which very little to no revenue, over a company with a traditional model, which will work over time. Yeah. They just want the magical Facebook that might happen.
But the metrics are pretty clear in this business at this stage, and those kinds of returns are just not really. That would require a lot of hope.
Realistic. Next, we had Tanya Fathers at Dating Factory. She gave a presentation on the latest trends in dating software and dating software as a service, particularly for private label.
Well, her company is growing gangbusters at this stage, and she's really at critical mass in many markets around the world at this stage. She's really focused on non-English speaking markets, but Australia's picking up.
Got her attention to come down here. Samantha Krajina, someone new that the industry hasn't personally seen. We invited her to come down and speak from Relationship Rocketscience. I gave her a pretty interesting challenge. I told her to say, hey, you want to talk about something? Okay, talk about email conversion rates for dating and show us emails that work and emails that don't, and why. And what do you think about that?
She said one thing, there's always that question, how many emails do you send to engage? And she said, no more than 1 email a week and no less than 1 a month, which just doesn't quite compute. I don't think that works well for her particular kind of content. But I think for the kind of content, when someone signs up for a dating site, they want matches. They want to be engaged more than 1 a week. I've seen companies that are sending 3 a day. I think that's overkill, but still, Match.com, daily matches, daily 5, that makes complete sense, not 1 a week. But apart from that, she basically said, speak as a human being, and I'm real big on that. I think that was just such really important advice. If something doesn't sound colloquial, if something sounds written rather than read, it just doesn't come across the same way. She's really king of that kind of content. As are a lot of the coaches and some coaches have done some incredible work with that kind of content. So I think we need to learn from the coaches of the world.
What was good about it was that normally I give new speakers sometimes a chance to speak at the conference, someone who the industry hasn't seen before, and sometimes they take their shoe off and put it in their mouth. Sometimes they do phenomenal. She did really well.
Yeah.
I was very impressed with her knowledge.
And she said use content that appeals to different people's different modes of, some people are very auditory, they listen, they read, they're really looking to look. So put in video, for example. I mean, we should be using video more. And she said, what is it? Multiple brain integration techniques. That's the next step from NLP, apparently.
We had Lucien and Pedro from Google, dating industry manager, Lucien, who basically covers the entire industry for Australia. He was here speaking. They were showing exactly what we asked them to show, new stuff coming down the pike, and new Google stuff. And
good insights.
Yeah, yeah. The cool one was at the end, Google Glasses. And that was pretty neat, where, you forget about your life, forget about your phone. You're actually wearing it and walking around. It's communicating with Google all the time.
It just blows my mind. I mean, that's a whole different world, and it's probably, how far away is that? 5 years? What are they predicting?
No, less than that. I mean,
really?
that's...
No,
come on.
surely not. But that's going to have some impact on our business. That's people discovery. I mean,
yeah, they'll test things, and sometimes they'll throw things away, and then sometimes they'll commit themselves to it. And sometimes they throw things away that they shouldn't. A classic example is Google Wave. Getting rid of Google Wave, I can't understand why they threw out Google Wave.
Was it that comprehensible? I mean, it wasn't so easy to immediately comprehend, and that's really important when you're trying to push a new product.
I don't know. It's kind of like Skype.
I think they've learned their lesson, though. I mean, Google Plus is actually that's getting more traction. Was it a couple 100 million members now? 120? What was the number they said? But I'm becoming more of a fan, especially with the way it integrates into advertising. And one of the key takeaways from this presentation was that if you use the social element of the advertising, so basically when you run an ad and it can show how many people have +1'd it, and if you've got friends that have actually liked it too, and they said that adds 10 to 12% in the click-through rate if you use the social element of the advertising and AdWords.
Okay. Yeah, there were conversations at parties about the whole like effect and the plussing effect, and whether or not that actually has a massive impact on the bottom line.
Well, it's recommendations.
It's debatable.
The power of testimonials.
Yes.
There's social extensions is the name of that product. They also talked a lot about various YouTube product which we should be using, namely TrueView, Homepage, and First Watch. So give us a nice overview of these new tools. And Ripples. Ripples is apparently a handy tool on Google Plus to track down influencers. That's a new tool as well. One of the things that Google talked about is the way we're using devices. They had some insight from some studies that they'd done, and they showed that the iPad is unique and very important to us in the future in the iDating industry, because the iPad is your happy device, is how they described it. You use your phone for work, you use your laptop for work and you're out and about, but you use your iPad when you come home to entertain yourself, to read. You come home, you sit at home and you go through profiles. And we need to be bearing that in mind.
But the other thing that they saw was that now with the whole idea of portable devices, that it's going to be everywhere. It's not just going to be a phone. It's not just going to be a phone and a pad. It's going to be in cars. And cars are just the tip of the iceberg. They're just saying it's going to be everywhere.
And a key takeaway is that the applications need to traverse different devices. So someone might be using their iPhone on the way home for work for viewing an iDating app. Then they might be on the couch. They want to have a better screen, so they'll reach for their iPad and they'll continue that experience on their iPad. And then maybe they'll be upstairs. They'll jump onto the laptop and continue the conversation that they're having with that person on their favorite dating site. So we need to consider that kind of transitory effect, and that user experience should be consistent across those multiple devices.
It means more work for the coders.
Absolutely.
That's what it means. Next was Frank Grasso from eChannel Search.
Right.
Frank's a leader out here in this part of the world on internet marketing. And I've had many conversations with him at the parties, so he knows his stuff, that's for sure. And when he gave his presentation, it was packed with information. What were your takes on it?
Well, he leads with PPC and ad buys, not too strong on SEO, but he helps companies do PPC more effectively in AdWords. He's big on remarketing. We should all be doing remarketing. He had some good suggestions for Facebook. There's a product called Facebook Custom Audiences, which he recommended we use. And the way that works is if you've got contacts for people, you can dump that into Facebook and then market to those particular contacts. If you've got their email addresses, etc., you don't necessarily need to be already connected with them. I think that's an important component of your eCRM now moving forward, I think. He also talked about Google Tag Manager and had some ideas for AdWords campaign structure, again, where you can kind of market and remarket more effectively to people you already are in contact with.
Max and Mark from RedHotPie had the party on the boat that went around Sydney Harbor. Thank you for a fantastic party. It was great. A lot of really good conversations that evening.
I met the lady who's running Fancy My Friend. I think we'll see more of that. I love that name, actually. I think it's a great brand name. But it was a great boat ride, and nice to just kind of chill with everybody and take a nice ride around the harbour. It was glass.
So we had Keith Terrell from Orp Media. He gave a presentation on the removal of backlinks. Very interesting session in terms of a lot of information. He really knew his stuff. He understood Google. So he understood SEO pretty well. He showed methods of how to detect your backlinks and also how to remove them. These backlinks are controlled by other webmasters, but he showed ways to basically keep records and logs of your requests and how to submit these reports to Google just to show that you tried to have these backlinks removed. The interesting thing was he said don't submit anything to Google unless you're already being penalized by Google. We had deep, long conversations on black hat methods and whether or not Google's going to continue this policy of penalizing you for backlinks, because it's a very obvious and simple thing. And they tried this 10 years ago, that they would penalize you if you had backlinks from suspicious or malevolent sources, such as adult sites and porn sites and things like that. The black hatters, they would easily attack your site by basically putting millions of bad backlinks to your site and penalizing you as a result. And Google 10 years ago, they realized this is a mistake, so they're not going to harm you anymore for that. Now they've turned tail 10 years later and give you back the same policy. I felt that they were going to switch and eventually go back and reverse this again. Both David Iwanow, who spoke after him, and also Keith Terrell, they believe, no, this decision's here to stay, which I can't see. No one black hatters that I know, the black hatters I know, this ain't gonna, they can't stay. It can't stay. Then we had David Iwanow from Amnesia Razorfish. Again, another brilliant luminary here out in Australia with regards to search marketing and e-marketing strategies. What do you think on that?
You know, the key takeaway with David, he gave some great examples of content development, but the long and the short of it is great content takes time to develop and make it interesting. And
the only thing my interesting part of it was it takes time, and yeah, that time equals money, and then how much is that going to produce in terms of revenue for a dating site? So he had great ideas and great stuff, and there really was a lot of information he had in there. No shortage of it in terms of really, really good resources. And there are things that should be done, but in terms of a dating site, content, there's only so much you can do.
And he gave a bunch of tools, different tools. Another consideration, of course, is targeting. If you're targeting a particular niche, then you've really got to put a lot of time and consideration into where they're at and what kind of content they're interested in. Some good tools to use, of course, are Google Trends. Also LinkedIn Today, so that was good for spotting trending topics as well.
And then it was great, we had Dave Heysen from Oasis Interactive there. He definitely brought a completely different point of view from the industry at the conference, and the amount of information he provided was stellar in several levels. He talked about paid dating versus free dating, but it wasn't just the same old argument. He actually put it from his perspective on how he was shifting from a free dating site to more of a paid freemium dating site, when that point was going to be that it's just going to be all paid.
Yeah. And he's really bound to give a good user experience because he's very dependent on the multiplier effect of people talking via word of mouth and promoting the site. So his hurdle level for promoting a site is no more than 10% of the new profiles coming in should come in through paid advertising, and that's when his multiples start working out. Of course, the advertising rates are going up and down quite a lot right now in Australia, and he's very disappointed with mobile advertising. That's a bit of a problem, to say the least.
Yeah.
36% of their traffic right now comes from mobile advertising.
They're also doing really well in Brazil, I think, right? Brazil and Colombia, he said.
They're in total 28 countries, but it sounds like they're a critical mass in about a dozen. And 10 to 15% of their money comes from advertising of other internet dating sites.
Then we had Yvonne Allen from Violin Associates, a long-time matchmaker. She's been on many of our iDate conferences, so we asked her to speak at the conference that we had in our own country.
I think overall, we're not really spending enough time talking to matchmakers. I think they represent the softer side. I think they represent the street level. And with 36 years experience, I think there's not too many Yvonne Allens, but there's so many matchmakers out there that we should be spending a little time listening to. Because we're kind of hard-edged, we're productized, and we don't really understand our users as well as we should. She does, but she doesn't understand our world. Mm-hmm. And the two worlds have not really talked as much as they should. You know, Match some years ago had an attempt at using matchmakers, and I think the conclusion they came to was that it's a very much a double-edged sword. I think they probably came to the conclusion that people will pay and forgive $20, $30 a month, but they won't forgive $1,000 if they've not met the love of their life. It's a big problem, and it can be scathing to their reputation. So, she's got a wealth of experience and knowledge over the years. She's struggled to make that heard.
And then Matthew Pitt at White Label Dating gave a presentation on eating the big fish. The idea was to explain to the smaller upstart dating site that's in Australia how to compete with the largest players in the market in Australia and become one of the most major players. He showed how using the mass of their database would assist, but he also gave some other methods as well.
His friend wrote a book called Eat the Fish.
Eat the Big Fish.
And the advice that his friend gave in that book was that if you're going to go after the big fish, you need to niche. You need to focus on what you know and niche and focus down, and then you'll have a chance of chopping away at the market. So that's what they do. That's what White Label is doing in general, Dating Factory as well. You focus on a niche and chomp away at the heels of Match.com, and that's what they're doing in Australia. White Label Dating has had great success over the last 12 months in Australia. They've grown to $7.5 million of revenue, a run rate.
Brendan O'Kane gave a presentation on latest mobile software developments and what's going on, particularly things that he felt would work best in Australia.
Yeah, that was fantastic.
Yeah.
Very good presentation. One key takeaway with his presentation is that web HTML5, it's becoming a richer experience and a more compelling experience. You can now upload photographs. That was a big hindrance that we had in the past that made us, we had to have a native app because we couldn't upload photographs, and that's a showstopper, right? Still, there's problems with push messages. There are some ways around it, but it's that big problem with using HTML5. He's recommended a hybrid app in the past, which is what his company Messmo is specializing in. And with a hybrid, you can actually have a wrapper which represents about 5% of the app code, I guess. And then it translates it, pulls in HTML5. So you can have your cake and eat it. There are benefits, pluses and minuses with each system. But now if you're looking at creating an app, if you've got money, go with a native app. If you don't, go HTML5. But if you can afford to pay a little bit more, you can have a lot richer experience with a hybrid app.
And Brendan certainly has his finger on the pulse of every aspect of it, that is for sure.
And he's actually got another company created called Other Level. I see it as an ECRM company. What he's done is help companies do better with multiple channel communications.
The coolest part was, it would send out multiple messages, find out which one converts the best, and then auto-correct itself immediately, and then send that best one going forward.
Yeah,
so you don't have to look and see which one it is. It is automatically sending out the right
He's
one.
been strong with SMS in the past, but now he's got a system that will send email, or actually listen. Actually, it's more an analytics service,
Right.
not really sending, but it'll do the analysis across multiple paths. So he'll listen to the email responses and the SMS and even phone, actually. I don't know if phone was included. He listed phone and fine-tune the outreach. So, and the push messages as well.
There's a lot of stuff. We had the final panel, which was perhaps one of the most colorful final panels I think we've ever had. Yeah, very colorful. The major points that I saw that came out was they talked about scams and scammers, protecting the industry with an association, which has been discussed before.
I think we furthered that conversation quite a lot.
Yes, it's been no more solidified. The other, we talked about the Australian market, and particularly what converts better. One of the interesting topics was, at what point, in terms of the percentage of men versus women of a dating site, does it no longer work? I mean, pretty much, it may work, but pretty much it breaks down. And the number was 70-30. That's what appeared to be the overall consensus in the room, that once you get beyond 70% men, that's it, you're done.
And then it's broken at 90-10. And that was from a Chinese study that was done.
Yeah.
The fellow from Bluegum Ventures pointed out. I think there's more forward movement with the possibility of an establishment of some kind of common standard that we built on the German standard and possibly take into account some of the agreed best practices with the ACCC. Now, what was interesting with the ACCC is it didn't really have teeth, and I'll say any kind of standard has to have legs and teeth. There needs to be an upside to being part of the standard. I think that upside needs to come in the form of some kind of recognized, built-up, educated upon emblem on dating sites that helps improve the retention and the conversions. This is a trusted site. based on authenticity, but the teeth needs to come in the form of some kind of audit, genuine audit.
Well, that's not teeth, but the teeth would be a penalty of some kind.
Well, the penalty would not be
Penalty,
having
you're
the
not part of
legs,
it. You're not part of
upside.
it. Well, you're not part of this.
So,
You know, you don't get this. You don't get the seal anymore. That's basically the whole thing. You know, that's the only penalty. You lose the seal.
No, we talked about this for years, but I kind of feel like we actually made some progress.
We made some
this
progress
time,
this
so,
time, yes.
yeah, there's some a little bit more commonality among what people are saying.
The other interesting thing was the discussion about the Australian government in terms of how they actually look at industries in general, how
Proactive.
they're more proactive than other industrialized nations in the sense that, well, Max put it pretty bluntly, that as opposed to the rest of the world, really there's nothing really broken here in Sydney. So the government representatives are looking for things to do.
Yeah.
So overall, it was basically you take the big version of the iDate and kind of make a mini version of it. It still had the same level of fun. I mean, that's what this thing was. This is one of the funnest
Are you
conferences.
kidding me? It's way more fun. I like the small ones.
iDate's in January. It's super fun.
Yeah, well, we're going to be Vegas. How could that not be fun?
That's
My
going to be
God.
fun. But the thing is, no, it's just less people, but it's just the same level of fun.
Yeah.
That's what
Yeah.
we're trying to point out. For me, it was amazing to see the level of people that were here in the Australian market, people I didn't know or see. One of the guys, he attended the first iDate in 2004.
Mm.
That was the only iDate he'd ever been to, and he comes to here because he lives not far away. We also had from
New Zealand?
New Zealand.
Findsomeone.co.nz. Rick Davis was
Yeah,
here.
Rick Davies, that was pretty cool. Yeah, we had people from all over that are in Australia, some new startups and things like that. It was just really a very positive experience for them and for us to see all those people there. Yeah. So, looking forward to doing it again. That's it.
Let's do it again.